blessed evening. Thank you so much once again for joining us on this special edition of the National Matters. We continue from where we left yesterday as we continue celebrating Heroes and Unity Day. Yesterday, we only touched on issues pertaining to our heroes, the history of our country in terms of our heroes. And one thing that came out from that discussion, which I picked for sure, was that we need to broaden the scope of our heroes. You know, we are only accustomed to hearing Dr. Kaunda, you know, Mwanga Nkumbula, Hari Mwanga Nkumbula, and Simon Mwansa Kapwepwe. These are the names that just come out, pop up whenever we talk about heroes, whenever we talk about this. But here on this program last night, we were told that there are other people out there who played a key role in ensuring that Zambia is where it is. And of course, we also learned that heroes or heroines are not only from the political atmosphere. We also had heroes in different other sectors, social, economic, and so forth and so on. So we need to broaden the scope of our heroes. Kaseva had also pointed out that, you know, we also need to start identifying heroes who've played a key role in terms of football, who've played a key role in terms of culture, and so forth and so on. So those are some of the issues that came through. We also heard from Mr. Akashambatwa, yes, who told us that Zambia at this stage is not free, because we sang the first lines of the national anthem, where he said, look, those words do not represent the current situation. As a nation, where do we go to get money? Who's funding us? Who's doing this for us? Who's doing that? So at the end of the day, we are still under the colonial masters. They still dictate how we should run the economy. Unless I misquoted your words, but I'll be getting back to them shortly. My guest, again, they are still back. It's the same star-studded panel. Mr. Akashambatwa Mbikusta Lewanika. He refused to be a politician, refused to be a diplomat. He says, me, I'm a freedom fighter.
Good evening, viewers. It's so good to come for this continuation.
Indeed.
Yes.
Kaseva Mashila Kaseva, of course, he's a political and a news analyst. Good evening.
Good evening.
Somebody was just asking me about, but who is Kaseva? And we've continued saying Kaseva is a journalist, basically. By profession, Kaseva is a journalist. He's worked in the government tabloid, and of course, he's one person who loves to read. And I give respect to him. Don't look at his hair like that, and his beard like that, as if he's. Oh, I forgot. I forgot that we are on TV. I thought that we are just chatting, the three of us.
That's good. If you are relaxing yourself, that's good. So if you relax, we'll also relax.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a freedom fighter. There's a people fighter.
No, I'm not a people fighter. Kaseva has been a people fighter for a long time. He's a young brother in whom I'm well pleased, by the way. I want to mention it right here on TV. And I'm happy that all of us, we look like freedom fighters in our own rights. You're wearing some African kind of tradition, African wear. Kaseva is in his usual chitenges. I'm praying that I can buy Kaseva more chitenges. How much do these chitenges cost?
5 kwacha.
Is that 5 kwacha? Okay. Right. See me after the program.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay. All right. So, this program is also live on DSTV channel 274 and of course on GoTV on channel 98, Top Star 106. You can also catch this program live on Facebook. Just type Kamne TV and it will be there. And of course on YouTube. You can also just check for Kamne TV. Today we'll pick a few phone calls and of course some SMSs, and make sure that you bring those messages, and of course let us know where you are watching this program from. Today we are specifically dealing with the unity of our country.
Yes. Well, it's a very important topic of unity, and we have to reflect on it systematically. And the first step is, what are we trying to unite? Because just like you, we can't have a topic about, let's go and talk about how to love yourself. You have to love something that is different from you. So when you talk about unity, it is of units which are different.
Right.
Which you are bringing together. Now, there can be unity based on regimentation, that you hold a whip and say, get in line, unite, or by force. There can also be unity which wants uniformity. And unity, the opposite of that is unity in diversity. So you can have different. My view is that if we take the independence dispensation we had, it leads us towards trying to build a nation based on unity in diversity. It was not a unity that we should all be in one party, it was a multi-party. It was not a unity that we should all speak one language to recognize the other language. It was not a unity that we should have a government just run by, without an opposition party. It was not a unity that it should only be run by black people, white people have no room. So we have to look back. But even before the independence dispensation was negotiated into a package of our first constitution, we should never forget that this territory, this African territory, before European colonialism, was featured African kingdoms. So the indigenous African kingdoms, the indigenous cultures, the indigenous societies, the indigenous are part of the things that we want to bring into whatever unit package we are talking about. I would pray that we don't think that it can only happen if we forget our African indigenous systems, African thoughts, and everything else. And it's not a casual saying, because it's not automatic. Because one of our presidents in Africa said that in order for the nation to be built, the tribe must die. That was Machel, talking about Mozambique. Mozambique, a nation created by the Portuguese. So basically he was saying that in order to build a modern Mozambique, you have to kill traditional Africa. I think that the independence dispensation of Zambia was of an opposite view. And I am also, of course, of an opposite point of view, that it is essential that we build the foundation. Some of our writers, Biteki in Uganda, wrote a song, some of you might have covered it in school, a song of Lawino.
Yes.
There is a poem there by Lawino, beseeching her husband who is trying to forget his Africanness, that do not uproot the pumpkin in the village. So that, I think, so that as we talk about unity, one of the units that's absolutely fundamental, and which I hope is the foundation of a genuine African future, has to be our traditional system. So that part of the things we are trying to unite, how do you unite the traditional African system and the modern system? So that is one unit among others that we need to identify, so that when we talk about unity, we focus on those.
Correct. Very right. Honorable Kaseba, I think he's given us a very good narrative.
So what are the other units, differences that our unity must harmonize?
You've seen, he's even taken over my job. He's now the one asking you questions.
Oh, that's the problem of associating with unemployed people.
They become entrepreneurs.
No, it's fine. You are free. You are very much free. You can repeat the question for him, actually.
No, I've got it.
You've gotten the question.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I would start from what we are speaking about comes as a result of what we have as a holiday, as a declared holiday, one of the 15 holidays, and which is one of the holidays not very well, can we say, recognized, respected, and so on and so forth. The aspect of unity perhaps features more prominently across the activities of our calendar every year. And I think we have a unity coming through either our constitution or coming through as an inspiration, as Aka guided us yesterday, of our national anthem. So you have the word unity, as in our national anthem, either unity or one, coming at about 5%. There are about 7 occurrences of one, and which is denoting unit, and Zambia about 7 times out of 100 and about 130 words, which is about 5%. So maybe the Zambia and unity as the highest or the commonest words in the national anthem would score about 10%, which is very high, which is almost like chanting, as Aka brought about the issues of poems. Now, when you get to see how unity has been given, I think it's the type that he has talked about, that does not recognize heterogeneity or diversity or differences. And yet, the purpose of unity is to recognize diversity. It should be unity in diversity, unity of purpose, unity of, for example, tribes. But what has been happening, tribes as building blocks. But what has been happening is that it has been division much more than unity. And where we are right now, we are at a point where, if you notice, I think from where they started from, with Dr. Kaunda coming back into multi-party, he was very clear to say that multi-party was going to be counterproductive to what unity one party had brought. And even where, well, he will speak for himself, and where these people beat Dr. Kaunda is that Dr. Kaunda was going into a referendum of 1991 to go and vote against multi-party. And that is where these people were able to get him that, well, we don't need to separate as the movers of multi-party. We need to have the unity. And Dr. Kaunda thought unity was UNIP. So when you get to see...
But I'll tell you one thing, that under Kaunda, I think there was even more unity than we are seeing today.
But the point of my argument, argument is
but
that...
see, unity,
but let him
unity
finish.
is like
Let
a
him
marriage.
finish. I come
it
to you.
can look on the surface that when, for an outsider, that it is okay.
Yeah,
okay. But also, please bear in mind there are two types of unity. They are both unity. You can unite by force, by jailing people,
So Kaunda
by having the Moshamwanas in prison for 10 years. And then young people like you are looking at Zambia that is united. Others are prisoners, political prisoners.
Right.
So that then there is the opposite of unity by force. There is unity in diversity and in free choice. And if we are Democrats, I think we should falter.
So I get it.
The other one...
so that it is very easy. Even Amin united Uganda for a little while. So...
Yeah, but that, I'm trying to argue that is, with the question you have given me of the types of unit, I want to disqualify that one as unit. Because that is what was rebelled against, the horse and the rider.
Right.
Is the type of unit.
Yes, that's another form of unity.
Yes, the ego and the fish. That is not unity. So that is what was rejected. That is what led to the independence, and which you said the unity must be multiracial, multilingual, multi-religious, and multi-party. And that is the point I was making. That Dr. Kaunda had fought against the unity of multi-party. There's a point where Nkumbula talks about the two-party system, and which is right now what is obtaining is almost like a two-party system. Except, again, there is a bit of rejection. There are desires for one-party system. What is almost, there is a de facto one-party system in place. So the unity of...
in place where, what do you mean?
Well, as at now, I think yesterday I mentioned of how the PF declared this intention to go for one party, and they started commemorating the Choma Declaration. And I think right now it is even given that Nkumbula actually was the architect of the Choma Declaration, and as opposed to it being having been imposed on him. So the way I would want to round up that is that we have reached a point of unity, that unity has been lost into sloganeering. It's now a slogan. It doesn't have a meaning.
One Zambia,
one nation. That is it. Why should we be united? It's just a slogan. So why should the tribes be united? So the issue of what Comrade Aka is bringing about, uniting people by force, imposition, that is not unity. And that must be rejected. And that is what was rejected as the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. And that must be rejected even today.
Right.
So unity has also been reduced into speeches.
Right.
So the meaning has been lost. So it is just... well, people... So
we are not actualizing, we are not making attempts to uniting the nation as opposed to every day hearing statements, no, we are united, you are united.
As a matter of fact, we are dividing the country because for some people, they do not have enough muscle to rule a united country. They would rather divide it into regions that are even clearly unconstitutional.
All right.
Okay. No, I was trying to say that let's identify the units we are trying. First, we've said there is a traditional system. There are options of taking some modern system. That's one. Then there are political parties. Some political party in a multi-party system will be minority parties. So to unite, you have to have an arrangement in which both minority parties and majority parties can work under one system. You have races.
Is that possible?
Yes, it
then
is.
Without having...
Our independence constitution, exactly that's what it made. It made the constitution recognize the opposition party. From 1964 to 1968, Mr. Harry Nkumbula was officially recognized
but the question
as
is
leader
that all these
it's important.
They've got different aspirations.
Listen, because, wait. I said the constitution itself recognized that there are different units you want. There are people who have interests as a majority party. There are people who have concerns as a minority party. So we had the first constitution did that by recognizing that the opposition party would be recognized in parliament. So Mr. Nkumbula was recognized as leader of the House of opposition in parliament. He had the same condition as a cabinet minister. He had offices, he had cars. And when he stood up to speak in parliament, you could see that he was also allowed to speak on a podium like a minister.
So Jack Mwimbu is the present Harry Nkumbula, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we don't know that. But I'm saying that this is now after we reintroduced multi-party. Because in '69, utilizing what I said yesterday, the license to change the constitution as you please, they removed recognition of the opposition party. So Mr. Nkumbula in 1969 was derecognized. Okay? This is the beginning of us. In other words, if after you've done that, you continue talking about unity, when you have failed to harmonize the different interests, because unity is not when we are all in one party. That's not unity. Unity is when within our differences can we be under the system. Then there are also races. There are also different ethnic groups and so on, which you have to look at. That do we have, and I believe that the Independence Constitution was a balancing act which allowed diverse. The only thing missing from the Independence Constitution was the fuller recognition of the traditional authority. Even that, although it was not fully recognized in the Constitution, apart from Barroseland, but at independence we inherited native authorities which had financial responsibilities, they had treasuries, they had many job functions to do. And again, that diversity which existed of two government systems in one was progressively destroyed by abolishing native treasuries in the traditional authorities, by marginalizing traditional leaders, almost hoping that one day you wake up and they have withered away. Okay? So that if the unity that is required is the one that can give us a system where we can manage our differences harmoniously in a civil manner, without anybody thinking that there is nothing in them for them in this united entity.
How do we achieve that? How do we achieve that?
What to start with is that the basis of achieving it was there in the Independence Constitution. So the question should be, how did we destroy that? How did we destroy that? Because if we recognize how we destroyed that, by allowing a system in which a ruling party can change the constitutional dispensation in personal interest, in partisan interest, regardless of opposition or cry of other people, then that is actually, so that people who do that, even if to me they sing the Zambian national anthem 1,000,000 times a minute, I'm not impressed. Even if they talk about one Zambia, one nation, I'm not impressed. In any case, those who do that, if they talk about one Zambia, one nation, then they don't even know the source of one Zambia, one nation. And we have a school system that has made sure that people go through school not even understanding the origin of one Zambia, one nation. They think one Zambia, one nation is some Lozi marrying a Tonga. Lozis we are all got Tonga blood. So it didn't start with colonialism. It did not start with UNIP. Bembas and Gonis were producing children together. So it has nothing to do with multi-ethnic marriages. It has to do with how the constitution of Zambia was put together.
Right. Kaseva, what's leading to this disunity from where you stand?
Yeah, I think
in this country?
I've already...
What's leading to these divisions? Could it be politics has taken over literally everything, taken over, as he's saying, our traditional systems of governance, everything seems now politics has taken center stage of our day-to-day living?
Yeah, I think there's an expression he has sometimes repeated of as a negotiation of winners a leader. I think you have heard that type of. So I think he has used that starting from 1969.
Right.
Every form of negotiation, I think, should have the winner takes all, and winners a leader. And I think you have heard that going into elections. Part of the way to answer your question for me is that the issue of the majority having everything and the democracy being the majority either eating the minority or the minority loses. Once you lose an election, you lose your rights together with the elections. Then when we say, for example, one Zambia, one nation, we never want to say one Zambian, one national. We are ever looking at a nation. We have never gotten it down to individuals. And if we were to get it down to the individual, we're going to say Zambia is an independent country and the Zambians are independent citizens. And we'll start talking about human rights. Now, the state does not bring the issue of human rights as a very critical matter. Yesterday you were asking me about Frank Mugala. Now, life is the foremost human right that you can have. And if you lose your life, and if an individual, Zambian as an individual loses his life, then the state does not feel any form of loss or negligence or failure. We have a problem. And that is when we have a problem of human rights and we have a problem of state rights. Now, if the state is going to claim to be sovereign, human rights too are sovereign. So the state has tended to be sovereign, to be a sovereign unitary state. That is what it pronounces, the constitution is here. That is what it gives itself. And it doesn't recognize its responsibility in upholding human rights. and the human rights of an individual. So what we are having right now is group rights, which are not even recognized as group rights, as opposed to human rights of an individual. So where we have lost it for me is that as we got independence, as we, for example, went multi-party, right now even the recognition of party rights, parties are in the constitution, but it's not anywhere backed by any act. Then human rights, you have this state starting, I think, from Kaunda 73 and all these detentions and so on, and the Chiluba, the Bruce Munyama Commission of Inquiry was very clear to indict Chiluba himself. This Lisimba Commission of Inquiry on the voting patterns and the electoral violence,
Judge Lisimba, yes.
Yes, has indicted this president, this government, of very clear human rights violation. The Human Rights Commission itself has indicted this government of human rights violations. So when we talk about heroes and unity, you find that the state is a villain. And if you then come back to unity, you will find that the state is the one in the forefront of dividing this country. Like maybe a pizza as a way to get to have pieces in a handy way in order to eat. Because as I can tell you, this I think for me the party in power cannot govern the country as a united country. For example, for the amount of poverty that is there, if you had all the poor people unite, the country would be very impossible
to govern. You think so?
Well, let's shift gears to the fact that when we got independence, what we got was an opportunity to build a nation. The notion that the night that the Union Jack of the British flag came down and the new flag went up, that a nation was built, is a fallacy.
Yeah.
It should have been now the starting line for building the nation. And the opportunity to build the nation was provided by this give and take negotiated settlement in which the different parties who could have caused disunity, there could have been disunity between Congress and UNIP. There could have been disunity between Europeans and Africans. There could have been even separation between Barotseland and Northern Rhodesia, and so on. Okay, this was packaged together. Now, what we should have done is build upon that, to that same spirit, expand upon it. What has happened since that same day, the day we got independence, that's the day we started destroying the nation building aspect of Zambia. And I'm saying that the process of destroying the nation of Zambia was facilitated by an allowance for ruling parties to be able to disassemble that unity, abusing majoritism in parliament. It's very, very important, because for us to complain about symptoms without going down to the root of the problem, this is like right now people have been debating.
So I've noticed.
I've been debating article, what is it? Bill 10. You see, it is just a continuation of the same problem of abuse of majorities. So what is wrong with Bill 10 is not one clause or the other clause. It's the principle that it's not people driven. It is not. It has not been subjected to a referendum as was provided for in the independence dispensation. So that even for you to say, okay, let us put better, like they could even say, okay, instead of these things they've put in that Bill 10, they will now put some article saying they will give you Mr. John money, or they will pay civil servants, all these little goodies. They will be just as wrong as if you had a good bill.
I take it that you seem concerned that the supreme law of the land in this
is mutilated. The supreme
by those that
and it's not just the supreme law of the land. Maybe that doesn't even. This is the foundation of Zambia that has been mutilated, and it has been mutilated consistently to destroy that package in which different people felt comfortable to go forward in Zambia. And that is a fatal thing. If we don't repair that, there is no hope in hell for Zambia.
But do you think we're going to repair that? Right now, I'm not sure. People think
right
that...
now, because I'm not sure, because I talk a lot about trying to take people to the root of where the problem is. There is too much comfort in looking at the symptoms and looking for the little goodies for yourself among the symptoms. There is reluctance to go to the root cause, that day one of Zambia's independence was the maximum unity that ever existed in Zambia.
So will I be wrong if I say we shall just remained under the British? Would I be wrong?
No. The African freedom struggle does not depend on that. The African independence has this legitimacy. It started before that. It will continue and it will triumph.
Kaseva?
Yeah, I think one of the issues I pick from his submission and what is going on, I think it's part of the rejection of the coalition government. I think they, for example, the PF are very clear to reject the government of national unity for a coalition government.
Are they rejecting? Because I mean, it's not even provided for in the constitution.
Yes, it's been rejected out of the current submission.
Actually, it's not even correct. That's not provided. You see, one, under the present Zambian constitution, a president chooses ministers from where? The constitution doesn't say chooses members from his party. It says chooses a cabinet from members of parliament. So, if he was able to manage diversity, he could even pick members of the cabinet from other parties, even under the president.
That always brings confusion. I mean,
no, the
opposition will start crying.
It only brings confusion because it's not motivated well. The motivation is to kill the opposition rather than to unite. You have, I hope, the government we have in Malawi, which is basically an alliance. The way I see how they've shared positions and so on, it gives one a little hope that while keeping your identity as different party, in other words, the new president of Malawi is not killing his vice president's party. He doesn't have to. And he will be well advised not to use that as his mission. If he falls in the trap that he can only be head of a government of yes guys who worship him, who belong to his party, who support his ideas, then obviously living in Malawi is also on the path to being doomed again.
Yeah, I think my
so that, but it's not so that, as I say, I wish we wouldn't waste our times on picking what is good in Bill 10 or what is wrong in Bill 10. What is wrong, you know, it says that Machiavelli says the end justifies the mean. But that is wrong. The means must also be consistent with the end. Just like the end of unity is not good if it is unity by force. So that it means the freedom that you want in unity must be also the freedom you want in the process of achieving that unity. You have to be consistent. The means and the ends must be consistent. You can't do sinful things and produce unsinful outcome.
Right. Kaseva,
yeah,
since you are being outclassed by him, whenever you start a sentence, he hijacks the flow for you.
He's a hero and he's a veteran. So
no, because he's
again he hijacks again.
No, I have great confidence in him. Part of my duty in my remaining days of life is to make sure that he sharpens his spears. I don't want to. I know he's a spearman. You know, these people from 6 Miles, they are good at spears. But they should sharpen them so that when they throw that spear, they are not throwing it at the leg of an animal. They must throw at the heart of the problem.
So when you talk of 6 Miles, are you referring to Shaka Fuso? Because Shaka Fuso is a lie.
Shaka Fuso probably comes from 5.5 miles.
Now he has moved me for 0 miles.
After it's a journalist, I want to be specific. Journalist Shaka Fuso.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's taken me to 6 from 0. Yesterday I was at 0, now I'm at 6. So I'm moving. Yeah, so I think what I wanted to bring about is the government of national unity, or a coalition government, as by what he has submitted of the government of 1964, is something imposed on you by the constitution. UNIP didn't want to go into it. I think
62. The
yes,
62
yes, 62
coalition government.
Yes, 62, which brought UNIP in 64. UNIP didn't want that. Neither of them wanted that.
Yes.
But it was imposed on them, the way it happened in Zimbabwe, by the constitution.
Right.
So the issue of
No, it wasn't imposed by the constitution. It was imposed by the electoral results.
Correct.
That no single party had the majority.
Which was provided
and then
for.
the Congress had enough seats that if it had chosen to go into a coalition with the United Federal Party, there would have been no black government starting at that time. So it chose to go into the black.
Yeah.
So it is just, in other words, it's not, the constitution did not say there shall be a coalition government. That constitution was not anticipating a coalition government. It was anticipating that there will be a comfortable majority for one party, which unfortunately is the mentality we have maintained, that no mercy is to have a dominant party.
Yeah, which is what I dealt with.
Right.
But the way I want to
Right.
bring up about that is when you go into a coalition government or a government of national unity, you are likely to suffer some inconveniences. As I was giving the example of Zimbabwe, you will not like it. It's not very comfortable, for example, to go into what was the Balozi Agreement, and being multi-party. These are not comfortable things. But when you have them in the constitution, you have to accept them. I think I've heard lawyers argue, and which I saw the issue of the speaker writing a counter judgment as a ruling to be read in 2 days and 3 hours 15 minutes to hit back at a judgment. When for lawyers, what they say, you lose some, you win some, you lose some. So to really avoid losing either an election or losing a judgment, that is very dangerous. So what we should have is that when you are going to be in a partnership as a partnership of unity, there is something you are going to lose. Firstly, for example, a marriage, you're going to lose your individuality. You're not going to be an individual. You can't live your life as you'd want. So that is what our politics has refused to acknowledge or accept. For example, the inconvenience of the minority. That is something that has not been taken. And also we have limited ourselves to...
You keep talking about the minority. Who are these?
The minority...
The party that has fewer seats.
Even the small tribes, for example.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that is also... That is part of...
By the way, I don't like this word tribe.
Yes, which...
You are too colonially minded. Because there are no tribes in England. There are no tribes in Italy.
Yeah, I think...
So it's an insult to us.
Okay.
Either we are community, we are nationalities, or we are ethnic groups. Let's uplift ourselves.
Yeah.
Particularly when you are talking about unity and African liberation mentors, as Bob Marley says.
The issue of...
I'm removing the sting of the...
Let me announce that.
The initial...
So let me just announce that at this stage, we can pick maybe a few phone calls. If we do have any at this stage, we can open the phone lines. You can also participate as we go on with the discussion. The phone lines at this stage are officially open, so we can also hear your views on this matter which we're discussing, unity of our nation. Where are we? We've gone 10 miles ahead. We've come 6. We've come to, like, at this present time, where is our unity in this country? Are we living like fritters, or we are living like buns? Which one is which? All right, you're on the floor.
Yes, I think we are more like fritters. Yeah. So I think for me the issue of I'm using the word tribe without the sting of, I'm using it in the Roman sense because the Romans used it on themselves and not the English sense. As in tricycle.
It's a lame excuse. Anyway, continue.
But we cannot allow him to continue when he's lying. You feel like he's lying.
No, I believe he can improve his language to decolonize.
He can uplift it to ethnic, as he's saying, ethnic.
Like I've said, tribe as in the Roman sense. It's just like a tricycle, triathlon or whatever. It's tri as in three. Okay, the way we are tri people here, we are three people or trinity. So in that sense of three groups, actually Bus as in tribus is actually three groups. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. You can even go into a company and talk about three departments as tribes. As tribes, yes.
The personnel tribe.
So you now agree with him now?
Yes. So I'm using.
Or it's a lame excuse.
I think it is.
Which is the same thing.
And the point has been made.
Yeah. So the point.
You can go ahead.
Yes, I think we are back to baking fritters, and I think for me there's a point he brought about development and also integration. I think that has not been said enough, as in as he brought about how the nation was born. Then there is the issue of nation development.
Right.
How do you consolidate the nation? Immediately the nation was born, it was disintegrated. There were selfish interests. When we talked about heroes and heroism, it is selflessness.
All right, so that's the way. This is what I've been looking for. So from what I picked from the two of you, you are saying that since 1964 till today, those in government, they only have their interests at heart, not the interest.
Maybe not just in government. Us as a society, you know, as I say, day one of independence should have been day one of starting to build the nation. What do we do, even at individual level? What you think, what you say, what words you use, how you relate to other people, either builds or undermines the nation. In other words, we have challenges of language usage. If you insist that your language should dominate, you are probably not assisting us to unite. If you learn other people's language, maybe you are assisting us from uniting. If you respect other people's different from you and accommodate them freely, you are building our nation. So it's not just in government, but it is really a more serious problem. Of course, leadership could have played a different role.
Right.
Because I remember that at the funeral of Mandela, that when the crowd was booing President Zuma, Vice President Ramaphosa then, who was MC, just to tell the crowds to sit down and calm down and stop shouting, he used 5 languages. 5 South African languages. That is an indication of consciousness. In Zambia, we have national prayer days in the National Cathedral, in which songs are only sung in 2 languages. That is destroying the nation unity, because that's an opportunity to demonstrate our diversity, our full diversity, so that whoever listens to that church service should understand that, no, this is actually a Zambian national event and a Zambian nation that is united in diversity, a Zambian national event in which everybody is part of. So it's not just government, it's people, it's churches, it's sports clubs. That are we conscious that we need to build confidence in each other? We need to accommodate each other, so that we shouldn't be comforted by finger pointing. We should first look in the mirror and see whether we ourselves.
Okay, we have somebody on the line. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Muranga, calling from Lusaka.
Yes, Mr. Mwanga, go ahead.
Yeah, you are talking about the unity. What I look when you say we need to have unity in the country, is accepting different views. Let me talk about the government or the political parties. You can only have unity in a country if the leader on top there can accept the diversity, the different views from different political parties. Unity won't be received. You can't have unity because you have got one political party. You can have unity with different political parties, but accepting the views and respecting the views of other political parties. Then you bring together on the same table. But if you want unity by whereby you are a leader, and you are a leader of one political party, and whether anyone who comes from another political party should support you and they worship you and you become a god, then that unity will never be. It will be a forced unity. But the unity can only come when you accept the views of others. And by doing that also you should go to from the source. Like Zambia had a good unity. When you look at 1964, the unity which was there since when we started, it was not the unity because people are getting married from different tribes and there was mixed marriages. The unity which was there is because we accepted the constitution, or the constitution was across the board. Okay? That's why you find that we were able to bring different people, different tribes from even into the cabinet. But it was not to worship a person. But if we go now, currently, whereby people want unity, they only talk about the unity if everyone accepts that one political party, then that is unity. But if every person comes with another view, then we are breaking the unity.
Right.
So we need to be very careful if you want this unity, because we will never have one political party. This is multi-party democracy. And multi-party democracy, it calls for respecting the views of others, if they are normal.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mubanga.
Hello?
Thank you so much. I think your point has been taken.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's a good point. It really rhymes what you are saying. I'll take over from there a step further, which you have hinted at, Mr. Mubanga, leadership. Now, we have to build leaders who can manage diversity. If their model of leadership is a dictator, if they think for you to be leader of the trade union, to be chairman of the trade union, to be head of anything, it must be personalized. So one of the heritages which has been falling aside is that in the pre-independence days, when Congress was formed, there were greater examples of collective leadership, lesser examples of one-man worship. Now we've lost that. As a result, even young people coming up, what do they think a president is? They think a president is a dictator. They think a president is Father Christmas. And we have leaders who think that their leadership has to be preceded by presents.
Right.
So that basically people think part of leadership is that if I go to Mansa, I should donate to a school, even stolen money. And our people accept that. So that we also have to blame ourselves for creating leaders who think they can buy leadership, and for voting leaders who have no teams, who are one-man leaders. Because if you are a one-man leader before you are in government, when you go to this constitution of Zambia, which is basically a one-party state constitution, except for the change in clause 4, it means that you find well-facilitated laws for one-man show. Because the presidency of Zambia has been personalized. So that if you don't produce leaders with qualities of being able to even enjoy diversity, to be able to manage a team of different minds, different interests, then the unity that Mr. Mubanga said, which is the real unity has to be unity in diversity. What looks like unity, if it is by force, if it is by imposing a one-party state, it's not unity. This is why, even after 17 years of the one-party state, the minute you removed it, we found the same disunity that had existed in 1968. Still present, they've not been sorted out. So Mr. Mubanga's point assists us to move a stage.
Yeah. Kaseba, also Mr. Mubanga brings in another aspect of political appointments. So political appointments seem to have taken center stage. They are also
and the disappointments in the recent past.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right, can you tell us your name and where you are calling us from?
My name is Pastor Gabriel Korala, calling from Kasio, and I like the articulation, so the insights from that there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. So, and I just want to say something concerning unity.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you can't unite if you are not objective.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can't unite if you are like what we are seeing. There is ego, there is arrogancy, there is people that don't want to listen from one another. So unity comes with agreement.
Mm.
What we are seeing is there is too uncivilization in the way matters are taken.
Mm.
Everyone is proud, everyone is arrogant because they are in power, because this one wants to whatsoever. So it's more like just a confusion that is going on. And even the Bible talks about unity in a sense that only the Spirit of God can unite you. It is beyond the physical, it is beyond the materialistic, it is beyond all these kind of things. It's about unity of the purpose. What is it that you want to achieve at the end of the day?
Right.
It's not about your background, it's not about your education, it's about what is the interest of everyone.
Right.
Then when we become objective in that way, we leave room for each other. This one speaks, this one hears, this one changes, this one, then there will be unity. As that they are saying that the unity that we are seeing is the unity of forcing people to unite. We're talking about one Zambia, one nation, without knowing what one Zambia, one nation should be. So we need, as a nation, and especially as men of God, let's be objective. The issue of Christianity should be as the Bible says, not as man thinketh because of power and what you want to benefit at the end of the day.
All right.
So let's be objective, let's be truthful.
Right.
So that at the end of the day, we will know that this is where we should go.
All right, Pastor Kolala, before you go, I have a question for you. You say you are a pastor, and you pastors also said to be contributing to this disunity in the country in the sense that you've taken positions. You find you, Pastor Kolala is gone. Pastor Kolala, you know, people are saying that you've now taken sides. You find that you are this side, supporting this particular individual.
Yeah,
you know?
But we are one society. This is why I was saying, when you say what is wrong with people in government, I was quick to say, look outside government, that the same disease in government is outside. So the same disease in soccer, in churches, because if the church is part of this society, so that if we cleanse this society, we have to cleanse our hearts and our spirits and our knowledge.
I'm looking forward to that day. Kaseba.
Well, at least we should aspire for that.
I think for me, one of the issues that we have brought about...
In other words, what I'm saying is that I'm not surprised that there is an institution in Zambia which has the same values and ill motivation as the people in government, because the government comes from the same society. So when we want to clean up Zambia, it is not one section, it's not one person, it's not one party. We have to really be committed to the principle. And I think the pastor was saying unity is based on agreement.
Right.
Which is basically and allowing diversity. And he hinted that it depends on your motivation. Is your motivation good? Is your purpose a win-win situation? Or is it personal? Is it partisan? That is where now unity, the same unity can become negative.
Right. But because I didn't finish the point which Mr. Mwanga raised. You see, unity. We can't see it even these political appointments. We've seen that people, same line, you know, this same surname, same surname, same surnames.
Yeah, I actually brought out the issue of political disappointments. I think that is also something that has come, especially with this government. What Mr. Mwanga brought about is the issue of tolerance. And then what the the pastor brought about, I think, on objectivity and certain qualities for leadership, I think is the issue of humility. Now, the point of nation building, Karen, and as you bring about appointments, the issue of national building and development and integration is not about infrastructure. It is not about putting Mongu Karabo Road and you say we have put 19 or 20 bridges and this is no, that's not, and that is what our politicians have. National building is opening houses in Monze. That is national building. Now, that is not what we are
You're
talking
not
about.
becoming a politician.
No, I'm actually shooting the politicians. That is not national building.
You see the spears that you are building now.
So they need sharpening.
Let me try to spear someone to know it is spearing. Yeah, so the point being that they have the issue of little goodies as the missionaries did. This is the same thing that the politicians are doing. To tell me about development, or you're telling me about maybe bringing power to 6 miles, or is it a tarmac to 6 miles, or from 10 miles to go to the chief's palace. And that is what we are being given as national building. When the language of the same chief has been excommunicated from the city. Right now they are dividing and sharing the land amongst themselves because they have access to the title. How do you, for example, become a president and you sign, like I think there's one chief who was threatened to sue someone. How do you sue as a chief? Can you sue as the Chief Kaseba? There's nothing like that. You go to court, you have to give your name. So how do you, for example, sign your name as, say, a president, and the title is given in the name of the president, and you receive a title deed? So the issue of national building and integration is not necessarily infrastructure. That is a totally different ball game altogether. So this confusion that they have carried deliberately by pushing self-interest and, for example, faking. One of the very critical ingredients we need about this whole discussion is humility. Now you hear people being called the humble one. And when you get to see the person being called the humble, they are not exhibiting any of that. They are self-serving, self-seeking. That is what they want. As maybe the scriptures will say about people claiming all this godliness and losing or shunning the powers, and their actions point to something totally different. So the aspect of humility and acknowledging that, for example, if I'm going into a deal, you too have interests. Even to put you first. When you go into leadership, is to put service first, people first. That is the way you can go in and strike a deal, as he has said, the win-win situation. So as it is right now, the biggest problem is that it's at leadership, people who are competing, as Mike Mulongoti said, eating with both hands. You are a minister by day, you are a businessman by night. And you are using both hands, and you are teaching people, and right now it's very common to say people are lazy. You are teaching people to unify and develop the country, when they are very clear they are developing your farm, your estates, and you want them as to be united as workers.
All right.
It cannot be possible.
Let's see. We have a caller on the line, but if we also have some messages, we can just go through some messages either on Facebook or in the inbox. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Tell us your name and...
My name is Stephen Perry.
That's Mr. Perry.
It's Stephen Perry.
Jerry.
Oh, Mr. Jerry, yes? Perry, but...
P-H-I-R-I.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Perry. Yes, Mr. Perry.
Yes. First of all, I want to recognize Mr. Kashabatwa Rewanika. At least it is wonderful to listen to the voice of an intellectual who is not biased. The biggest problem about the unity in Zambia is that even when you interview people, like my brother, who is with Mr. Kashabatwa Rewanika,
people should be building. A wrong thing must be a wrong thing. If, for instance, as we argue that the building a road is not development, and the building houses is not development, improving infrastructure is not development, what is in development to him? Because I'm happy that he has beside him an economist who is also an author of the networks. I mean, even our young men, when they just are born, they are oriented to support wrong ideas. If I am dreaming, what the expert says from the past must be correct. No, I must say, when something is right, it must be right. When it's wrong, it must be wrong. For instance, I know he supports UPND. There's no doubt about that. Now, as a supporter of UPND,
you mean Kaseva?
I'm saying he is a supporter of UPND.
You mean Kaseva? That's what I'm asking. You mean Kaseva Mashila, or you mean?
Not Mr. Kashabatwa.
No, I mean Kaseva. I'm saying Kaseva. You mean Kaseva Mashila?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I've always followed his argument. Now, when you go to debate matters like this, you must be able to try and articulate the interest of Zambia, regardless where you come from. For instance, I'm not a young man. I know very well. The people he's supporting, for instance, they said it clearly when Mazoka died that a leader cannot come from anywhere else other than Southern Province. Is that building a nation? Is that unity? For instance, is it unity for any political leader, it being PF, it being UPND, to tell a parliamentarian who was voted by people that he should boycott going to parliament? Is it unity, for instance, when a person says you cannot vote in the referendum, which is a hankering on Bill of Rights? And you find out that there are people who debate, and their debate is based on supporting, even before he starts speaking, you know that he's supporting.
All right.
I want to thank God that for a change, we have followed a debate which is unbiased from Mr. Kashambatwa Rewanika. Thanks very much, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
If I may ask you a question before you go, Mr. Piri.
Yes.
Are you PF?
No, I'm not.
But you're not.
I'm not UPND. I'm not even. I am Zambia.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Piri. You know why I was asking because
No, but I think what Mr. Piri says is important.
Yes,
I
it is.
think even from yesterday, I was addressing young people.
Right.
Don't make up your opinion before you have read all the views and the information. And don't engage in politics where you just choose sides. That if you have blocked in one side, then you attack the other side or you support the other, regardless. We must focus on what is wrong. And what is wrong, you must focus on the root cause of that, what is wrong.
But
I think I've belabored that.
do you
But
know,
more important,
why I asked that question was because, you see, you remember in your days as MMD, when you were very active in MMD, whoever who said anything towards the end of MMD, let's say there was PF, in 2011, especially in 2011, whoever who said anything against PF, I mean against MMD, he was PF.
no, the point...
This time, whoever who says anything against, then is labeled...
And that history should teach us
Yeah.
that, you see, the wrongs that we see today, we must trace them back. Is it the first time? And where we go back to the beginning.
But what of those
so that basically what it is that I think that it is better for you to find out what is wrong. And what is wrong with Zambia, it may differ in degrees, has been wrong since independence. In other words, even the Kaunda government was not 100% democratic. But their undemocratic tendencies may not have manifested themselves as badly as they later did, because bad governance, like corruption, is cancerous. It can't stay still. It has to expand. So it has to keep getting worse. But even though it is worse, we should not forget to trace it at its roots if we really want to solve the problem.
Right. Kasaba, you wanted to clarify?
Yeah, I think Mr. Piri tended to debate me much more than make his point, or tended to, can I say, praise Comrade Aka more than make his point. I think there's aspects of patronage. I think you are very clear that he's wrong. To give me a position, as Aka is saying, he gives me a position and starts to throw points at me from from his point of view, which is totally incorrect. And to unite with a person like that, who really sees UPND in me, as opposed to a professional who is here to
you also seem to be overreacting to him.
No,
he was just providing counsel. And what Mr.
No, I think the excuse you gave him is that when you give examples of bad behavior, you are pointing at one party.
That Mr. Piri is also is an example.
As long as you say also,
yes,
then that's okay. I think this is why it's important for you to point out what is wrong, so that you are even able to say that even in the party I support or don't support, these characteristics happen.
Okay, let me be in charge. Let me be in charge. Let me be in charge. Kasaba, Mr. Piri, what he was only asking, I think if I quoted it.
Why can't I answer him?
No, I'll give you an opportunity. What he was asking was, if taking development to Monze, if constructing a road, if constructing houses for police officers
But he took that out of context. And I was very clear.
If that is not the development, then what is it?
What I have said, national building is not a road. It's not a house.
Yeah.
That's what I said. So he deliberately takes that out of context.
So if that is not national building, what is it then?
Yeah, that is what we are saying. What we are discussing right now as national unity and national building and national integration is not the issue of distributing goodies of Mongo Karabo Road and the 19 bridges. That's what I've said. Talk about what is happening between so-called Zambia and the Balosi land, or the matter of Balosi agreement. That is what is national unity. Because that comes from the constitution of 64, and which ended the Balosi agreement. Now that is, you are bringing together, can I say, two regions or two countries, which these people today are talking about regions when they mean Southern Province.
Which two countries are you bringing together?
I'm saying there's a Balosiland agreement. Balosiland agreement is about a country called Northern Rhodesia and Balosiland.
For now, we only know there's only one Zambia.
Yeah, but if I'm talking about building, now you are bringing two blocks together. And for Zambia to become a unitary state, as that is what I'm saying. So it is not building Mongo.
Hold your thoughts, Kasaba. Hold your thoughts.
Not Mongo Karabo Road,
let's just push in. Let's just push in a
discussing
Okay, let's just push in a caller. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
I'm calling you from
Yes, sir. Mr.
Mr. Kango.
Mr. Kango. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Kango.
Yes, go ahead, sir. We are with you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Aka.
Good evening, good evening.
Long time we have been seeing you.
Okay, at least you are seeing me and I can hear you. I'm well, thank you.
I'm all right, and you, thanks.
And my contribution is that
Yes.
You know what? I understand what you're discussing. We are talking about unity in the nation. And for sure, for you to prevail, it all formed and rises from the kind of leadership. I think that is there leadership must steer the unity. And I'm very sure if leadership is able to steer the unity of the nation, then we are going to experience the unity that we require. For political feeling, from the church point of view, we need a proper unity, the proper leadership. And Maxwell says it all falls and rises on leadership. And what we are lacking, you can talk about so many things that we may incorporate nations to become united. But the cardinal thing is leadership. When the people are authority now, don't take the time to bring people together, to bring the nation together, to bring the political parties together, it will be possible to unite the nation.
Right.
Very much, Karen.
Thank you so much. But I'm not happy because Pastor Kangwa is gone. Now he only greeted you, him, me. He left me out. Then there's no unity there. Because he should have provided unity by greeting all of us.
Okay,
so Pastor Kangwa, we are grateful for your contribution. Indeed.
Yes.
All right. If we have any messages at this stage, we can go through some of the messages and see just what the people are saying before. Mr. Aka and Kaseba, no messages. Come on, and somebody just says no message.
That's the message.
Okay, that's the message. Hopefully, it's a message that they are listening.
No, that's a message at least.
I think that guides us to the issue of leadership we've discussed.
Yeah.
But we've also been guided to talk about development.
Right.
Because I was saying that when we are talking about unity, we have to identify almost different things that we need to unite. Now, the economy we inherited from colonialists was disarticulated in the sense that it was not linked. In other words, there was development along the line of rail and other development in the rural area. So the other challenge of building an African nation, not just Zambia, is really to ensure that the divide between rural and urban and the linkage between the industrialization you are investing in and the production of the broad masses of the people. That is another challenge that we did. And after independence, even before independence, by the way, the history of our development planning is that before independence, the British provided Professor Sears and the World Bank finance team. He did our interim development plan and first development plan. The theme was guiding us towards import substitution. So we did not transform the economy.
Right.
Except in that sense. But a decade later, even the IMF, the World Bank, realized that import substitution is just transferring where you are demanding foreign exchange, but it's not sustainable in many cases that we had invested in. Which means that at the end of the day, up to today, over half a century after independence, this divide is still there, and we are still challenged to provide how to unify that. And it is linked to how we unify the traditional system.
Yeah, but one thing I hear is that I think Kasaba was the one who was supposed to answer this, but I'll excuse him. Look, we are told that this disunity is also coming from selective, probably, application of development. We hear that development is only going into one area, the other area is lacking in terms of development.
Those are what I call symptoms. The disease. But
do you agree that
that's yes, because it is inherent. You see, we normally you see the Zambian economy is a copper economy. But Zambians used to produce copper before colonialists. But we needed it for bracelets and a little bit for money. We didn't need an open pit mine for our needs of copper. So those who invested in copper were saving their own needs. The motor industry in America, the electric expansion elsewhere, the war to make bullets and things for them. Okay? So that it was a classic kind of development, which in the 90s, those of us who believed in trying to canvass for the linkage of the economy was that we produce what we don't consume, and we consume what we don't produce, which is not economically bad if what you produce can earn you enough income to cover the cost of what you consume. But it is not, so that at every round we get underdeveloped. And the major victim of underdevelopment are the rural areas. So that whether today someone decides to build a factory, Indeco, when I was director of project at Indeco built Mansa batteries, Chipata bicycles, Mungu maize mill, Choma maize mill, and the idea was that we want to take development to the rural areas. But after we commissioned Mansa batteries, we had trained the personnel, employed them, they started working. I discovered that of all the people working in Mansa, whom we had given employment, only 4 were local people. And 3 of those local people were security guards. Which means the idea that if you take a factory to Mansa, you are taking employment was false. The raw materials we needed for dry cell batteries, we needed some manganese. At that time, manganese was not such a commodity on the market. So we just go to a few hills, collect the glass and bring. Within a couple of lorry rides, we had all the materials we needed, but we didn't buy them from anybody. So the benefit from having raw material is not there. We discovered that the local people are sensible. They've already figured out that a dry cell battery, if you put it in the sun, it regenerates. If you only need it for radio, it's good enough. So they don't buy batteries. So the market again was in urban area. And when I looked at the Chipata bicycle we had built, I found that it's the same problem, except that the difference was that at least the people in Chipata bought bicycles on a large scale. But otherwise, this import substitution, whether you diversify it, as long as you maintain the same economic system, which is not linked to what your ordinary people are producing, you find that the linkage continues. And if we continue under the same system of the economy, this alienation will continue. Even if you take an industry somewhere, if the economics of it are the same as Mansa batteries, it will face the same fate as Mansa batteries. So we have had many Mansa battery attempts all over the country, sometimes for election purposes, for telling the natives that we are also bringing development. But when you examine deeply, this industrialization has impoverished rural areas.
All right, let's just push in another phone call. If I can just... Hello, maybe just 2 phone calls, then we can close with this. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Your name and where you're calling us from?
My name is Maxwell. I'm calling from Lusaka.
Yes, Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, greetings to Boaka there.
Thank you very much.
And Wakasema.
Good evening.
Yes, my contribution is you're talking about unity, and the unity that we have now, that we have been having in Zambia, is questioned now. Yes, is under test now, and it's either we lose it or we can build on it, or build it further. My contribution is if the people that are in power, okay, if the people that are in power are the first to bring all of us together, the nation can move in the right direction. But if the people that are in power seem to be dividing, then I think there's no hope. Everybody will have to get to their, get to their guns, for lack of a better term. Like what happened in Southern Province, it's very sad. I'm very sorry for that. But I think we should avoid such. I like the discussion that is going on. Please, if only, I like what Aka is saying. I mean, we should build everybody. Nation building or unity is for everybody, not for a few. That's what I wanted to contribute.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate. All right. Kaseva,
Bye.
Kaseva, you were babbling with something. I've seen your...
Yeah.
Is this also a finger?
No, it's not.
A journalist's
It's a toe.
finger.
No, I think Pastor
All right, we
Kango-
are under 9 minutes now. We should be winding up with the program.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Pastor Kango brings out a very important point on the issue of leadership types.
Right.
That is, well, I think something we cannot overemphasize. It speaks for itself that the type of leadership as leadership is there to serve and not to serve itself. I think that is what that is the foremost type we should be asking for. Talking to Maxwell, I think one of the issues it brings about questioning unity or the unity type is also important. I think what I like about his point is that he brings it down to, for example, issues of what we have had under different leaders of simple things like Indaba, dialogue. These people, when they were, the Akas, when they were fighting for multi-party, they were able to meet Kaunda twice. The first time, I think, organized by UNZA students. Now, can you imagine how much debate? You born freeze, I think you born 80s, and how much debate we have had over the chairmanship of just the Edgar Lungu and the HH shaking hands. Okay? How these people can be divided by people like this Stephen Piri, where we are saying, both of them are leaders. Can they show leadership of just even having some dialogue, some kind of unity, some kind of indaba, some kind of dialogue, even just a phone call? Can they share a platform, for example?
Yeah, but we are told that they talk in the background. You and that may not even know.
You are told.
Yeah, but we need to see that. They need to break down the
You also
tension.
want to see that.
Yeah,
Yes.
just like you had, for example, Mwanawasa met Sata and so on. Mwanawasa met Chiluba, Chiluba met Kaunda, even after power. But these ones have created the situation, like you're saying, like Maxwell is saying of Monze, whereby it is a situation, or a do or die situation, where they get in town and remove all these billboards and posters and clean up the town. This is it's a hometown, and then we start talking about the booing, and not the issue of conquest. That you really need to put the presence of government or this person and the police force as a force, as opposed to a service in Monze, and it then has consequences. And then we say, oh no, this is what has happened. Why can't HH, for example, be in Monze and the president? I think you have stories of Sata blocking a motorcade and Rupia Banda coming out, or is it greeting, or Christian Tembo blocked and so on, which is not the story right now. The issue of intolerance, which I think was brought about by Mubanga.
All right, this is my last caller, Kaseva.
Yeah.
This is my last caller, and we've closed the lines. Good evening.
Actually, Karen.
Kana ngachi nayo mwati.
Gotcha. Mtoto ni waka.
Ande shangwe.
Wakasema pasheria
Kawa tukashia wanene?
Kawoto. My name is Kuyumayuma. I'm calling you from Kawo.
This is Kuimaima.
I would like to raise one point. I've been following the debate, but one point that I would like to raise is, this issue of we are going to talk about unity in totality. It also so much talks about the equal distribution over the national cake. Okay, because I remember when Michael Sata was leaving PF. You said, you use the Bemba adage, which is very clear. So even at home, if there is no equal sharing of resources, families will scatter. So now when you see, recently there was an appointment of different commissioners. If you look at the appointments of people in the public service of late, it's all pointing to the same region. You do not expect the other region who are also contributing equally to the national cake. They are baking the dough, they are getting the firewood, They are preparing the cooking off. They are warming the queue, and then they don't take part of the sharing the cake. So that is a deception of unity. I think the point of unity, the people that are in leadership, in this case the Patriotic Front, have a bigger responsibility to ensure that they pull unity. They pull the people that are weaker. It's not that are stronger. So instead that have to pull the weaker. Like the example that was given, the meetings between the ruling party leaders, the people in office, and the opposition was initiated by those that are weak, that are in leadership.
All right. Kui Marima, before you go, I wanted Kui Marima to come and get his brother Kaseva.
Yeah, I think the point he makes on
those are also your concluding remarks.
Yes,
because
okay.
Now we must go.
All right, to wrap up. First, I would like to lock up on 2 points. One, the character of leadership that goes together with a unifying leadership. One, it's a team leadership. In fact, the African National Congress at its founding had 2 slogans. 1 man, 1 vote. The other one was leadership through team spirit. So that team spirit, collective leadership, consensus decision making, and being patient to get a consensus, a win-win outcome type. But it cannot come without training, unfortunately. Particularly in our circumstances, where since independence, the model, particularly of state leadership, that has been presented is a one-man show.
Right.
Now, which means you have to almost reschool the whole generation. The next generation has to be reschooled.
We are now eating into the time for news.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that I think is important, that we have to furrow down that there is a type of leadership style that induces. But the final point is that the reason there is a one-man leadership is through the abuse of the Constitution. And if we don't revisit the 1969 referendum and retrace all the changes made to the Zambian constitution since independence and examine them one by one and decide whether this change was personal, was partisan, or was against some other people, and if it was so, to remove all those, then we will not rebuild Zambia.
Thank you so much. Kaseva, and in less than seconds, I don't know how many seconds, but under seconds, under a minute. Okay.
Yeah, I think what we have discussed is unity as it is provided for in the Constitution and in our national anthem, as we have sloganeered, electioneered about it. I think we need to come to a realization that these words are not just words, they are responsibility. We have a duty to observe and respect unity, or is it diversity, as opposed to the division that has been going on. I think Aka brings about a point of...
we need to go. We need to cut the program now. We need to go.
Yeah, consensus is very critical in a democracy, as opposed to the deliberate usage of or bringing about of conflict.
Thank you so much, Kaseva.
Talk about unity. Let's observe it as a value, as a national value that we have given ourselves.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Kaseva Mashela, Kaseva, political and news analyst, Mr. Akashamba Twambikusta-Lewanika.
Interviewee.
My name is Carla Mchima. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you so much.